Hi everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Today me and Anya, are going to present our TED Talk product.
The topic that we have chosen is simple to understand and can be closely connected to your past, especially at school. We found stories, examples, and situations from our life that will help us to find the core of the topic. So, you probably heard the phrase collective responsibility before, and I suspect that you have been heard it quite often. There is a belief that if the entire class is punished for the fault of one, then this class will definitely begin to influence this guilty person in one way or another, so there are no more failures. In this approach, there are several extremely bad trends that lead to destruction of a team. Let's take them one at a time.
At first, a parable. A girl was walking along the beach and returning the starfish that were washed up on the shore back to the sea. Suddenly, she met an old man. The old man asked her why she was doing it. The girl answered, the sun is high and the tide is turning, and if I don't throw them back into the sea, they will all die. The old man said, but the beach is so big, it stretches for miles. You can't help everyone. The girl took a starfish and threw it into the sea. I hope at least one. Let's start with the question, what do we want from such a team? For example, we have a team in factory or our employees in our company, or students in a class. This is what we ultimately want from such a team because our actions, what and how we will say, what strategies we will choose to work with the team, where we will lead it, if at all, depends on understanding our wish list.
Let's assume that we are indifferent to both the collective as a whole and the individual people who make it up. In this case, we're free to do anything at all. A particularly interesting situation occurs if people can't leave the team, I mean our experimental group, and if so, you can conduct any experiments on this team. For example, introducing the so-called collective responsibility.
Imagine that you were late for your work for 30 minutes and think, let's say, 1/10 of your salary. Not only you, but everyone. And what actions will the other team participants take? How can they prevent you from being late tomorrow? The honest answer is nothing. Only you manage your time and only you are able to be late or not to be late again. As a result, it turns out that the authorities will have punished everyone, and this all cannot influence another such punishment. After all, anyone can be late. Therefore, even just according to the probability theory, delays will occur regularly. And thus, collective responsibility works in that situation? Of course it works. Any team, any system strives to maintain its equilibrium state. Thus, for some time, a certain rule or methods of interaction of all members of the team, which allows you to continue earning a predictable, constant amount of money per month.
So what happened? The bosses wanted employees to stop being late and hoped that collective responsibility for lateness would somehow fix the situation. But it turned out that the team has developed new rules of existence, where regularly occurring fines have become something common, like rain, wind, or winter, and they learned to live with it. Collective responsibility worked, but not in the way that authorities wanted it expected. People put certain losses in the calculations and stopped fighting with delays. And as soon as they stopped fighting, there was a responsibility to lateness. It's true that no one is responsible for being late. These phenomena like rain, like snow, we can't control it. And collective responsibility turns into collective irresponsibility.
Let's say members of the team started shooting, demanding to cover their losses and the expenses of the latecomer, or even use force against the latecomers. What happens in this case? In a short time, there will be nothing left of such a team. We can no longer talk about productive teamwork here. So, what has improved from the introduction to collective responsibility? The bosses destroyed the collective. They forced people to prevent punishment as an integral part of their working atmosphere, as an inescapable natural phenomenon.
And how will team members perceive such a boss? Will they respect him and for what? After all, the authorities, instead of studying the problem, just transmitted the solution on the shoulders of Tim. But Tim can't solve the problem on its own level.
To complete the picture, let's expand it from the individual side and let's see how he can reason. I got to work on time, but Peter was late and 1/10 of my salary disappeared. What can I do to make sure that Peter isn't late? Nothing. What can I do to make sure that the authority doesn't take away 1/10 of my salary every time Peter, Senya, or anyone else late? Nothing. What to do? If resigning is not option, there is remains to accept. Will I help Peter with work issues? No. I will try to make the company where I work flourish? No. What am I going to do? Try in every possible way to make sure that my money can be taken away from me. There is responsibility for Peter, Senya, and other people. What responsibility do they have? Exactly the opposite. This is responsibility for everything around.
So let's take another example. My colleagues and I agreed to do something together. For example, come up and clean the park from rubbish. So who is responsible for what? If the park remains littered after such a cleanup day, who is fault? Everyone's? Those who came but did nothing? Or those who promised to come but didn't? Or those who organized this cleaning day? The situation is quite comical since removing rubbish in the park is not penalized in any way, even if they promised to remove it and didn't.
Let's imagine something punishable for which there are articles in the criminal code and for which you can get actually a term in prison. For example, this. A group of people is gathered. One opens the door of the bank and immediately turns around and leaves. He doesn't steal anything. His hands are clean. The second goes in and opens the boxes with the money and immediately turns around and leaves. The same situation. The third takes the money and takes them outside, puts them on the asphalt in the front of the bank door, turns around and leaves. He didn't take anything for himself. His hands are clean. The fourth passing by sees the money lying on the ground, picks them up and takes them with him. He found them, not steal. His hands are clean. Who is responsible for robbing a bank? Nobody. Collective responsibility. It is exactly what our society looks like at that moment.
As a
When we are
result,
not responsible not only for ourselves but also for others.
so as a result, productivity tends to zero. Everything falls apart and no one is responsible for anything. Collective responsibility brings a lot of harm. Only personal responsibility, which is clearly separated, allows you to be sure that there is always a person who cares for his particular part. Or even if he doesn't care inside, then others know who is responsible for what.
Only thing we is to clearly know who is responsible for what, and that these areas of responsibility are not shared with anyone, do not intersect, so that one person is always responsible for one time. So that there is no else who is responsible for the same part. And then there will be a situation when each problem and task will have their own name and surname, the person responsible for this problem or task. And we will be able to ask specifically for the result or its absent, and accordingly to punish or reward the responsible person, do not abstract collect.
So always find the name of the person responsible for your question, task, or case. Personification of responsibility, the best solution. So conclusion, at first we want to say thank you for your attention and we hope that we fully opened the topic and show you all the pros and cons of it. Thank you again and goodbye.
You're amazing.